I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a. Well, I haven't been for a while.
Trigger warning: sexual trauma, alcoholism, and other explicit topics mentioned.
Yeah. Make space for me. Hurriedly, shakily, scurriedly, wastely. Okay, this is the explanation of the poem Make Space for Me. This is so fun. I'm excited. Okay, shut up. Okay. At this time, I want to share a story about a boy and a girl, both named Rory. I've been watching Gilmore Girls. This just what came up. One likes dolls and the other likes cars. They aren't so far from each other. One plays basketball, one might attend a ball. The first would be caught dead in a skirt, the next doesn't see himself as a her. As you can see, these two individuals made up of oxygen and chemicals, they live by standards invisible to the original. No, they don't live by standards. They live for them, not you or me. Then here comes Steve. That's not right. That shouldn't be. Doesn't know he's a he and she's a she. All right, here we go. So the story starts off with these two characters, both named Rory. One's a boy, one's a girl. They have the same name, but they're both named Rory. One of the girl doesn't see herself as a her. She may be trans, and the boy is he likes girl things. It is implied he may be gay. Who knows? And of course, someone named Steve comes out and shares his opinion on the situation. That's not right. That shouldn't be. This isn't okay. These people need to be this way and live their life this way. Okay, whatever. But oh, and also their kids. Did I mention their kids? Okay, good. How dare you, Darlene screams. This is not like the old times. Things are a fluid stream. These kids have access to internet and increased intellect. They don't need your backlash. Your ancestors did that. Now I'm going to look you up. Steve Vincent from North Arlington, Virginia, zip code 22207, profile status, married, bio, match made in heaven. Now, why do I keep butchering that? But you get the idea. So this guy Steve, he comes in and he's like, listen, this is wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be. Darlene says, yeah, maybe we used to think like that in the past, but things have changed. We understand things. We've grown with the times. We don't need your backlash. We don't need your negativity. You're a white man. We got enough of what your privilege has done enough, okay? So, now she's like, this guy sucks. We're looking him up. And that's what she does. And she finds his information, okay? You get it? This is simple stuff. You get it? Okay. Works for an insurance company. I knew it. Look, suspect 44, white male caught with weed. Darlene says, look, guys, not only is he intolerant, he's a criminal, an addict, and worst of all, illegitimate. Just to paint the picture, she's just like, she looked him up. She's like, this man expressed his opinion, and his opinion is negative, and we don't like his opinion. We're going to look up all of his history. We're going to look him up on all his info. It's implied that this was Facebook. And then she's telling everybody, look what I found. This man has secrets. He has stuff in his closet. The crowd goes wild. Everybody is watching this, and they are cheering. They're cheering for their heavens. The crowd goes wild, screaming for their heaven-sent child to be rectified for his transgression and for his pride. This is getting deep. So everybody's screaming. They're all excited. They're like, you know what? Yes, he's a bad person. We've caught it. Heaven-sent child. This is God's child. This is God's child. Just as much as you're God's child, just as much as these people are God's child. This is God's child, and he is being punished, and we are happy for it. Knock, knock, knock. The cops are at his door. Not only are they happy for it, he shared his opinion about these kids and saying they shouldn't live their life this way. This random person says you're wrong because times have changed, and not only are you wrong, but we're going to search up your history. We're going to go back into your profile. We're going to pull up all your dirty laundry. She tells all these people. These people are cheering her on and cheering on this situation, and now they've called the cops on this man. The cops are at his door. Steve says, officers, what's all this for? They said, we've got some complaints. They say you are a what? That's crazy. Sir, you are in denial. There's evidence, and we've pulled up your file. This is crazy. I don't have a file. I live in a nice neighborhood. I've got healthy kids, a wife, and a life. You don't understand. I came from strife. I beat the odds. Now I'm no god, but I made something of myself. I fought long and hard, and I earned my reward. You can't take this from me. So this is a man. So now we're seeing some more into the story. So the cops are at his house. Remember, Darlene started this whole, what is it called, pitchfork thing, and got everybody to get into this man's life. And now they're at his house, and they're now calling him a pedophile. Now, we went through the history already. We don't know that yet this far into the story, but the cops are coming saying he's a pedophile. And he's saying, what are you talking about? I beat the odds. Now we're getting a little bit into his story. I mean, this is a white man caught with weed. We know that. These cops are at his house. They're saying he doesn't know where this is coming from. And he said, let me tell you who I am. Let me give you some backstory. This didn't just come to me easily. You may think I'm this white privileged man, but I had to work for this. And I have a beautiful life. I've made something of myself. And this took long, hard work. You don't get to just come here and take what I worked hard for. Now remember, all of this started because he shared his opinion about the two kids, Rory. He didn't believe that was right. He shared that opinion. Darlene spoke up about it. And now there's a crowd of people involved. And now the cops are involved. Look at the escalation of this whole situation. Okay, sir, put your hands up. You have the right to remain silent, Steve. 12 hours later, locked up and inbound, Steve surrounded by the rowdy, obnoxious, and belligerent. He thinks, I don't belong here. Now we see that part of him again that is a bigot, that is kind of prideful, that believes he's a little bit better than everybody else, because he's comparing himself to these people in the jail, and he thinks he doesn't belong there. So there's that, what's that word? I guess prideful part of him coming out again. So we see the story is now laid out that he's in jail. He's in jail. He's locked up because they called the cops on him because they have said that he is we don't, as of now in the story, know if that is true. He thinks I don't belong here and I don't deserve this. All I did was question those kids. Remember, all of this started by him sharing his opinion on these kids' life. Now, let's keep going in the story. It's such a good story. Okay. All I did was question those kids. I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a... Well, I haven't been for a while. Gasp. What do you mean you haven't been for a while? I mean maybe I did, but I was only a child. Fast forward, it's 7 a.m. and Steve hasn't slept in a while. Been up all night contemplating the night when he was a child. Now, this is a beautiful part because what happens here is, this is how it happens. Trauma. We get triggered. A time in our past that we have blocked out in our lives has been reintroduced, re-triggered because the cops have taken him. I mean, this is a very distressing situation. He's in jail. You can imagine that situation, just so overwhelmed, taken from your family, all of these things. He's having a flashback to when he was a child. How flashback and PTSD works is he's remembering the details of the situation before he actually remembers the situation. And PTSD trauma does is it makes you very hyper aware of your senses outside of the situation. So he notices that it was humid, so much so that he began to sweat. It was Craig that he met. Craig asked him to undress. Someone named Craig he met years ago asked him to undress. Steve clutches his fists. He didn't remember this. Now stuck in this cell, his memory precedes him. He was 14 and it happened very quickly. Now 30 years later, the guilt catches him. He's sweating profusely, shaking profusely, screaming at them. Steve says, if you don't let me out, I'll have my lawyers clean you out, you effing idiots. It's simple enough. That's how PTSD and trauma works. This man had this stored trauma that he never looked at that was just brought up into his body in this distressing situation. He's reacting. He's having a PTSD reaction and he's screaming in the cell at the officers. This has nothing to do with the officers, but he's screaming at them because he has not faced this traumatic event that happened to him. Now, the part about this that is so profound is that he was a child. He was 14 and he was taken advantage of, but he feels like a pedophile. This is a very common thing for victims of trauma, to feel that they caused it, that they were the person that caused that thing to happen, to feel guilt, to feel like it was their fault. The problem. It is a true thing that happens. It is that how that works, but he feels guilt because of what happened to him, and this memory is brought up from this situation where they have taken him to jail. Now, it's just assumed and implied that that is not true, and it's not.
Let me just clarify, he is definitely not a P word, okay? The idea is that what was looked up about him it's been taken out of context and it looks like, or they've decided to make it seem like that's what it is. This happens a lot with social media and different things, but he's definitely not a P word. That's the whole point of the story. But the point is that he felt like he was one because of the trauma in his past that he didn't, never faced. I hope that that's clear. He's definitely not a P word.
Because the idea is that things are taken out of context in this whole story. Things are taken out of context. Things are over-exaggerated and blown up. Everything in this poem, in this story, it has that theme. So you can infer that that's the case. Like, whatever was found about him, they are turning it into pedophilia, but what we do know in the story is that he did experience a trauma and that he feels guilt for it, and that's how PTSD and trauma works. So now 30 years later, the guilt catches him. He's sweating profusely, shaking profusely, screaming at them. Again, that's how the trauma can work. Just as I explained in the past video, I've explained many times before, here I am screaming at people that maybe don't deserve to be screamed at. It's not about them. It's about the trauma that was triggered, that rage, that visceral reaction. And you can understand this in a high-stakes case like this. I mean, it's 30 years and he never thought about this situation. I'll cut off their asses and hand it to them. Now it's 9:45 a.m. Cut to the scene of Darlene and her friend Finn. They are on stage claiming their victory. We just did what anyone would have done. We must weed out the bad seeds. Obviously, these people went on a rampage. This man, we started out the story. He shared his opinion. Someone named Darlene came in and said, "This is not right. You're not right." She looked up all his history. Then they called the cops on him. This man is in jail. The crowd is praising her. What did she do? She put this man in jail, and what we know, which she doesn't because she can't see this, she doesn't know into this man's mind. We know that this is a man who maybe has some opinions that are bigoted opinions, prejudiced opinions. He doesn't believe in being transgender and gay. We know this. We see that he has looked down on the people in the jail, but we also see a person that was traumatized, wrongly put in jail, who did this man deserve all of this? I mean, this trauma that was brought up was only brought up because of this woman who decided to make a victim out of him. Remember, we called him this heaven-sent child. He is also one of God's child, just as much as she is, just as much as the two children, Rory and Rory, are. Everyone is God's child. Now, this is what she said. So now everybody is praising this woman, praising her. And she says, listen, I didn't do anything crazy. All I did was point out something that was wrong. She says, please don't praise me. Darlene screams. The audience shout, we love you, Darlene. She's not even comfortable with this amount of praise because she's having that moment of like, why are they praising me? I'm not a saint. I'm not a perfect person. All I did was what anyone would have done. Why are you looking at me as if I'm a saint? I'm not something you should live your life by. I'm flawed. I'm human. I'm not perfect. Why is she saying that? Let's see. After hours of congratulations and salutations, she finally makes it home back to quiet rumination. In the public, she's a saint, but at home, she can't escape. So she takes to the gin to forget her sins. She picks up the bottle, then sets it down for a while, thinking, I can be better, but I haven't been for a while. I'll take one more sip, and downs the whole bottle. Reminiscent of her adolescence, she settled down by the bottle. This is alcoholic. She has, what leads to alcoholism is, you can imagine, trauma, whatever the reason. She's not happy with herself. She doesn't feel like a great person. These people are praising her and loving her when she doesn't even like herself, and she drinks to deal with the pain of, I had put in there, quiet rumination. She could be, quiet rumination. She could have like a lot of anxiety. It's implied that she could be like OCD. OCD is very hard and it is very taxing, and she could use these substances to numb that because she struggles. She says to them, I'm not perfect. Don't praise me. And they still did anyway. What does that say to you? That says people's view of what they decide to praise and the people that they decide to put on pedestals, maybe they don't deserve it. She knows she doesn't deserve to be put on a pedestal, but these people are doing it anyway, even when she tells them not to. Maybe that might imply that we have to question what we thought was real and what isn't. Now, and as you can see, they lead two separate realities. This woman is praised and loved in the public, and she's at home and she feels bad about herself. But in public, when she leaves the house, people are loving on her, while this man is in jail and he's forced to remember this traumatic thing that happened to him.
While Steve awaits trial for a crime he didn't commit, Darlene receives praise for a transgression against a sin. Yet Steve holds outdated views. Insisting against obscurity, Darlene avoids responsibility by forcing others' accountability.
Darlene is the person that decided. Maybe Steve's views are outdated. Maybe his views are negative. Maybe he's afraid of change. He resists against obscurity. Maybe this is his way of feeling like he's in control, is because times are changing in the world and things are so different. And maybe his kids, it's implied, maybe his kids are so ahead of him, and this is just how he holds on to, he feels he's in control of the life that he has and that he's living and things. And Darlene, she avoids looking at her own problems by looking at everybody else and pointing out, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And she knows that this isn't right. She knows that it's not okay. She knows she has internal deep work to do, but that's so hard to do, and it's so much easier to point the fingers at other people. But look what her pointing fingers has done. It's put this man in jail. He resists against obscurity. He's scared. And she also is an addict, an alcoholic, an addict. But do these two people deserve to be judged and ridiculed and treated as if they're not also one of God's child? Aren't both these people God's children? Imperfect, flawed human beings that aren't perfect. Two individuals, contradictory lifestyles, brought together for a while to rectify a guile. This happens so many times where I just wrote a comment under a post and Darlene just happened to find it, and Darlene took very personal you know, I don't know, she was personally offended by this post and decided to go on a witch hunt for this man, and look what that led to. They just ended up crossing paths at this one time. Their whole life stories are these intricate and complicated situations that you would not know based off of one interaction. I mean, she doesn't know anything else about this man other than that one comment under one post and anything else she looked up. And even that, none of that could have given you any context into who this man is. Now, of who he is a human being, you know, heaven sent child. It is reinforced that these are two people that are God's children. All of these people are God's children, imperfect in their own way, like rectify an issue. They just brought together, they just crossed paths to deal with this one issue, and who knows what will happen to Steve's life. His life may be completely changed and transformed. The flip side of that is that it's viewed as a beautiful thing and a necessary thing that, 30 years later, he needed to overcome this, and maybe his life will improve and he will heal and he'll go to therapy, and beautiful things will happen, and he may not even go to jail. And there's that side of it. Maybe Darlene will see what happens to Steve and really take a look at herself and make a difference when she sees how easy it is for people to just decide you're a saint and you're not, and she knows she's not deserving of it. Her idea of right and wrong and moral responsibility changes, and she goes and looks within and decides, oh, maybe I should go about things differently, and maybe she makes some changes in her life. Now, that is also a beautiful thing that can happen. But in the whole grand scheme of the story, you just see people just being very harsh judgers and judgment and jumping to conclusions about people when it's not necessary, it's not okay. We should give, you'll see. Then, like me, you may be wondering what happened to the child whose existence started all of this, the child whose self-expressions shed light on their sins, the child who knows nothing, living peacefully in a tucked away village, no phones, no technology, no social media to witness. Here, it's not necessarily about the problem with social media, it's just more so saying that they're unaware of this. Their whole lives have been flipped upside down because of these kids, and they have no idea about any of this. And even if they did know, what would it mean to them? They're kids. Obviously, they couldn't understand the complexities of these things, but imagine your whole life being turned upside down because you shared your opinion about these kids' life that don't know you and don't know anything about it. Any change that you wanted to make by making those statements, by saying your opinions on these kids' life, didn't really do anything. They had no effect on these kids' life, but it definitely affected your lives. Look at your lives. Look at your lives. All of this for these kids that don't know anything. I mean, you could make the argument that you're just a Christian person and you don't believe in being gay or lesbian or whatever, but what all you have done in the situation is share your opinion. Your opinion hasn't actually led to any change. It's only led to change in your own life, positive or negative. That's subjective. But at this point, it begs the question: was you sharing these opinions because you actually cared about protecting these kids' lives, or was it just for your own egoic reasons, just so that you could feel better about yourself? And how did that work? How did that really work out for you? Obvious to the emotion they've struck up in the lives of their audience. I forgot to mention the part where I said the child whose self-expression shed light on their sins. That's another beautiful thing, and that was something God showed me. Being triggered is shedding light on something that you needed to heal. It is a blessing to be triggered, and ultimately, these kids just were living. They were just living their life as they would always, being themselves. And look at what the unraveling and the unfolding of everything that came from that, just from these kids living their life and being themselves. It's almost as if the foundation of these people's lives was rocky, and these kids shed light on that just by living. For the two kids, one Rory and one Rory, named the same name, just said differently. Whatever, that's not part of the story, even though it rhymes, but yeah. It makes no difference what she plays with and what he reads. They meet every day after dark to play on the swings and pretend they have wings. They laugh at snark and sing songs and talk about art. They're just living their lives, free as a bird, not concerned about anything, just being themselves, just living. Concerned with what's right and what's wrong, they're just being. The first likes trees and the second likes leaves. It makes no difference what each other likes because they both enjoy the weeds. I just wrote that because it rhymes. It's not like they like two different things, but leaves and trees and weeds, they're all similar, of the same type of material. It's all the same, earthy material. They don't like the same specific things, but it's all of the same place in the same way. We're all God's kids, we're all God's children, and we don't agree and we don't like the same things, but what does it matter? At the base and the core of everything, we're all God's kids. They exist in this separate reality. Their reality is completely different. It is implied that maybe they will grow up and they will have to learn about these things, but as of right now, they're free. And you can also say that being a child is very free, separated by distance, time, and space, and none of them know just the drama they create. A boy who likes girl things and a girl who likes boys, or two people who dance and make noise. In each story, there's one girl and one boy, each affecting each other, each part of the same void. And in the end, no matter how their stories end, their lives would have been better if only they would have offered space to one another. It's about humans are going to be humans, and humans are not going to agree, and humans are going to make mistakes, and humans are going to have perspectives that we don't like, and there's so many things we can use to divide each other and to decide things about each other, or we can just give people space to be more than just one thing. Beings, it is the best thing we can do for each other, to give each other space. It's a beautiful thing. You can do it for yourself. Everybody can benefit from it. That is the poem Make Space for Me that I wrote. Hope you enjoy it. You can listen to the full thing in my video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you share it with people. I think it's so healing. I think it's such a beautiful poem, and I think it's just so beautiful. So beautiful. I love it. I was scared about, there's triggering things in this poem. I was definitely scared for that. So hopefully that gives some more context into this and people get less afraid of it, but it is a very common thing to struggle with feelings of guilt after a trauma like that. It's unfortunate and it sucks, but yeah, just the showing the nuances of life and things, and let's give space to each other. Let's give space to each other. We shouldn't. I think what everybody could do better is just not jump to conclusions and put people in a box. Let's not move so quick to decide this person is just a bad person or this person is just a good person. Let's just open that up, that view, that world view of people, to be people are just fluid human beings, and you can be many things at once, and you can also be none of those things, and all of it is what it is, so it has to be okay. I mean, okay, whatever. Love you guys. Bye.